Good evening. You're flying with Pod Squadron podcast. All wings report in. This is Andy Pod Job standing by.
What's up? This is Dayla, the Pod Piper, standing by.
All ships to attack formation, mission objectives to talk about Star Wars and movies, streaming, animation, books, themed experiences, and your art and inspiration from the galaxy far, far away. Today we are talking about a little bit of Star Wars news and overall entertainment news. Also, we'll be diving deep into Ahsoka episode 6. We've only got 2 more left. One of them's tomorrow. So here we're going to get into that. And for all of you out there, all comm channels are open. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Find us on YouTube, like and subscribe. Hit the bell icon so you know when we have new content. But first, I'm your squad leader. I'm Andy Lowe, aka the Chinese Pirate, director, storyteller, puppeteer, performer, and fight choreographer. And on my wing is Dayla.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Allison Dela Cruz, or Dayla. I'm a content creator, writer, producer, performer, and a bi-celestial nerd. I love both the Star Wars and the Star Trek.
And of course, we are just one squad in this fleet. We're part of the Geekish Network. That's right here on YouTube and on Facebook. We've got Rodney on the flight deck with us as foils to attack position. We're going in. All right. So the first bit of news, this is pretty big. So the Writers Guild of America has emailed all of their strike captains basically on Sunday nights, basically saying that negotiations have come to a deal. And basically all WGA strike activity has been halted. That said, they are still encouraging WGA members to support the continuing strike for the Screen Actors Guild. We are still waiting on official language as they are writing up the new contract and disseminating that to membership. But it sounds like they've got a deal finally. Have you heard anything from any of our friends out there?
No, I've just seen a lot of different kinds of posts from friends talking about, for the WGA friends who work for the WGA, just kind of what some of their shifts of what's going to happen, and people just wanting to support SAG-AFTRA, and all the folks who are still left waiting for their contracts also. So I think it's a hopeful time.
Yeah.
But I also am like, yes, as soon as all the lines are signed and the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, then that's when I really want to celebrate full force for everybody.
Yeah. Very exciting. And of course, now also very exciting, we have Lexi with us.
I made it. Oh my goodness,
Woohoo!
I got a new router today, you guys, and I wasn't home and just working out some kinks. But yeah, I apologize in advance for being rude and like putting a little food in my face right now, but I didn't get to eat because I was dealing with internet problems.
Self-care is good. It's all good.
Good to see you guys though.
Good to see you.
Self-care is the way.
Let's see here. So what does this mean? Going back to Strike Talk. So what does this mean for Star Wars? Of course, so The Mandalorian was supposed to go into production for season 4. There were a lot of rumors around about that, and possibly a second season for Ahsoka, all for Disney Plus. We've interestingly haven't really heard much about Skeleton Crew, which was supposed to be another spin-off show that was supposed to be somehow connected to Ahsoka. So I think, it's anyone's bet, right? I mean, they've lost time on production. They still have the Dave Filoni Heir to the Empire adaptation film on the slate. So I know there were some talk in the rumor mill that Mandalorian season 4 might be shifted to a film, whether that's for Disney Plus distribution or a feature film in theaters. Who knows? It's anyone's bet, but I know that they are all trying to figure out how distribution channels work.
Well, and I'm sure they're also trying to figure out like how, not just distribution, but like how the creation patterns are going to work now, because so many production calendars are out of sync.
Yeah. It's a lot of shit.
Across
or decimated. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I mean, it is interesting, right? Because they still have, there's a lot of content that is actually still scheduled that has been in the can for a while. Like, what is it? The new Loki series is supposed to start very soon. A new season of Our Flag Means Death, which is honestly one of my favorite shows from last year.
I'm so excited about.
Absolutely blew me away. And of course, we know Taika Waititi is still attached to a Star Wars project that no one knows anything about.
My biggest talent crush.
So there's a lot out there. It's going to be interesting to see how things unfold. Let's see here. Is that it on news? I think that's it on news for now.
I think that's it on news for now.
Cool. So shall we dive in?
So many things.
So much.
Okay.
This whole episode, I just kind of sat there and like held my blankie and was like, oh my god, oh my goodness.
So this is what I think we should try and do. I think we should just try to very quickly summarize the story, like try to go for like the 5 to 10 minute version of what happened, and then let's come back, because I think we're all gonna have a lot to want to dive into, like thematically. Who feels confident they can take a stab at a quick story synopsis of what happened this week? Anyone?
I can go if that's helpful. I don't know.
Yeah, I want to offer someone else because I know I have a tendency to talk a lot.
That's the only reason I'm not offering, is I'm like, man, I'm such a bad rambler, but I'll do it if you guys want.
Give it a shot. Give it a shot. Okay.
All right. So we started off with space whales. I was happy. We've got Ahsoka and Huyang in the mouth of the space whale, having kind of a heart to heart. I love that we're getting to see a lot of Huyang. I was worried it was going to be a cameo kind of scene, and then he's just been ace sidekick. So fantastic. We get Huyang dropping a really great meta okay, Ahsoka, let's tell you a story a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. You know, uh, that's then it cuts to Sabine in her prison cell. We kind of get an exchange there. Sabine keeps, pushing with typical Mandalorian stubbornness, like, hey, what about our deal? Hey, what about our deal? A lot like Baylan Skoll's reaction really, I think, kind of reinforces this moral neutrality that or not neutrality, but this moral ambiguity that we've seen from him. And he keeps getting more interesting. Morgan Elspeth, he gets, talks to Morgan Elspeth. Then we get, am I skipping ahead a little bit too much if I talk about like about Thrawn's entrance? We have this absolutely epic.
Well, okay, so let's see here. So yeah, there's a little bit of an exchange with Morgan Elsmith and Baylan, because it's because she asked specifically if he intends to maintain his deal with Sabine, and he's kind of vague, and he says she could be useful. But that's the thing. Then we see the planet approach. And as they approach the planet, they talk a little bit about Peridia and what it was. We get more little hints about what Peridia represents in the stories, but they specifically mention that this was where the Purgles go to die. And then we realize that the ring around the planet is actually a bunch of Purgle bones, which I was like, I need to at some point later, like at the end of this all, do my like Disney story point like tally point, because we've already had like the Little Mermaid entrance of Sabine, and of course go back to Rebels with the Space Aladdin introduction of the Diamond in the Rough,
and now he's Space Moses, but we'll touch on that later. Well,
but now we have the Simba, the Lion King elephant graveyard reference, which I thought was hysterical. Okay, I'm getting into the weeds. Okay, so let's hear. Yeah, they get to the planet.
So we talked about the Purgle graveyard. We have a communing moment with the Night Sisters, who are fantastic and.
Oh, right. Okay.
And the Night Sisters ID that so I mean, this is more in favor of more points in favor of what we'd been discussing in earlier podcasts about this show kind of leaning into one of our favorite theories about the Force, which is that everybody is, has a connection to the Force. It's just some people have a stronger natural connection. Some people will go out of their way to cultivate it. Some people don't have the opportunity. And confirming that even though compared to a Jedi Temple youngling, Sabine does not have much power, that she still does have a connection to the Force, because the Night Sisters say she stinks of Jedi.
Actually, they say it stinks of Jedi, which I was like, oh, that's interesting.
They completely dehumanize Sabine. Obviously, she doesn't like that. But yeah, so they say it stinks of Jedi. They want to get rid of her. Baylan Skoll kind of, they let her go after we have this very epic introduction for Thrawn, in which we see some really, really interesting trooper uniforms and masks, and we get some more characters wonderfully brought out of animation for the first time. Was this the first time we saw the Night Sisters? My brain's not doing chronological order too well. It never does.
This is the first time we've seen. Well, I guess are they Night Mothers or
Night Mothers? Yeah, you're right. Night Mothers. It is Night Mothers. Which implies like several Mother Talzins, which is terrifying.
Right.
Yeah. So Thrawn and cohorts offer Sabine a supposedly no strings attached. Here, we'll set you off on provisions. Go see if your buddy's alive or not. We don't care. Obviously this is a trap. Sabine,
this is a trap.
Yeah, it's a trap, right? Sabine is smart enough to know this, but I think she's kind of tunnel vision right now. She takes him up on the offer because she's come this far. Why the hell not? She leaves, and Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati are sent off after her, to take care of them. And then you find out that, you know, Thrawn, as usual, in what I think was a perfect way to illustrate how he's always thinking of things from every angle, always has plans A through, you know, forget A through C. He's got plans like A through F going all at the same time, and admits to Morgan Elspeth, I don't really care if your mercenaries come back either. It's less of a headache for me to have fewer Force users around, which to me I think is great because it has a Thrawn learning from his mistakes where he underestimated Ezra, and look where that got him, literally in a whole other galaxy, stranded. So he's like, yeah, let's just get all the Force users to off each other if we can. I don't care if they get off the planet.
He also interestingly seems to have even though he doesn't know Balin, he's heard of him. He's a General Balin Skull of the Jedi Order.
That was interesting.
For sure. That's like an amazing 9-year memory. Like that he would have all of those, you know, buried in the back of his mind.
Okay, so then
she's off into Peridia.
Yeah, she's off into Peridia. She has her dog horse Howler, whom I like. Obviously I was like, oh, are they gonna make that thing a character now? Like as soon as they started having her develop a rapport with it, I was like, oh no, are they gonna kill it at some point? They still might. They still might.
I mean, I was just going, oh, okay, Dave Filoni, you got to figure out another space wolf. Okay,
another space wolf, yeah. And you know, she develops a rapport with it. As she develops the rapport with it, it sends out the oh guys, help me, I'm blanking out on the little hermit crab people.
Oh, the Noti?
Noti, there, yeah, that's yeah. So she finds them. They get very excited about her rebel insignia, and she realizes they might be able to grab. That's literally what I was saying the whole time. I had to go back and replay that scene because I was just South Parking it the whole time. Half part crab.
Yes. Totally crab people Wicket, right?
Yeah, crab people Wicket, and she talks to them, gets them to recognize the name Ezra Bridger, and hopefully they lead her to Ezra Bridger, which you find that they do. They have a sort of Hobbit style village that moves around, or like the early Hobbits, a little crab people travelers. And there we do indeed find Ezra Bridger, who is now Space Moses. He's gone from Space Aladdin and he's become Space Moses. But one of the things that I actually think was really brilliant about that choice in facial hair is that if you remember in Rebels, when they show his parents, his dad's got a beard like that, and he's grown up to look like the spitting image of his father.
Yeah, that was kind of cool.
And we get this subtle emotional reunion. I mean, not subtle, but not like over the top drama, but this very for me landed as a tender emotional reunion.
Yeah.
What do we have next?
Then we go back to Thrawn.
Well, Skull and Hati are chasing her, right? And they're doing the we're gonna fall back and like see where she goes. They roll up on the site where she fought the bandits, who at the end, I don't know, the audio cue, they sounded like the Bantha, is that what they're called, on Tatooine?
The Tuscans?
Yeah, they sound like the Tuscans.
The Tuscan Raiders, yes, thank you. The shit that there was a little bit of Tuscan Raider in it, and I was like, oh, it's this galaxy's version of the Tuscan Raiders, but in red and black.
Oh yeah, and then the very last thing was we're back on the Chimera, and the Night Sisters sense someone else is approaching inside of a star whale, and of course it's Ahsoka Tano, and Thrawn deduces that, and Morgan Elsbeth is like, no, Balin assured me he killed her, and he's like, yeah, it wouldn't be the first time the Jedi or the Night Sisters use death as a deception. So, and then he says, I want to know everything about her. Tell me what planet she's from and
who her master is, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, not interesting choice. That's a telling choice because he's one of the few who knows who Vader is.
Yeah.
So, he's going to try to some degree and probably succeed to some degree to use that against her. And by the way, that their pilot for the Chimera deserves an award for that parking job.
I know it was like Star Destroyer cowboy style.
Yeah, reverse cowboy. Reverse cowboy.
Reverse cowboy.
For sure. For sure.
I have to drop that because Tracy's not here, so someone needs to make the dirty joke.
For sure. For sure.
That's
I
an
mean,
honor of Tracy.
when I saw it happen, I was like, whoa, I don't think I've ever seen this kind of, this landing or this
Hi, hello.
mounting. Yeah. I was like, whoa.
Mounting.
Whoa, we're gonna sit just right on top of that shaft.
Mhm.
All right.
Hi.
Cool.
Yeah.
I saw on Reddit somebody made a post that said, "Is this the first penetration scene we've had in Star Wars?"
With the Imperial Star Destroyer, for sure.
I was gonna say, I mean, take however you want, like seeing the animation of, the photon torpedo going to the center of a big round egg. I mean, Death Star, right?
Reverse Chimera?
For sure.
Okay, so obviously there's a lot of stuff here. A lot of really interesting little lore drops, more little like mythological references. Where do you guys want to start? Like, what jumped out to you guys? Like what things excited you?
Everything.
For sure. For sure.
Everything.
Yes. I could jump in for a little bit, Lexi, while you
Yeah.
swallow and
Inhale pepper.
inhale pepper. I mean, I will just say from the jump, I mean, the Hu Yang a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. I mean, the amount of like internal screaming was just a little bit off the charts because I was like, oh, look, they're setting it up for us.
The
and
screaming
then
was external on my part as well.
for sure. And then like, we get the, oh yeah, volumes 1, 2, and 3. And then her whole low grade, like, well, volume 1's the best. And it's like, ooh.
So what are you
here
trying
we
to
go.
say? What are you trying to say, Ahsoka?
Yeah. For sure. So yeah, I will say I did appreciate we got a little bit of Ahsoka and Hu Yang understanding that they're on a journey and just trying to map how long that journey through the galaxy we know to the galaxy that's actually far, far away.
Yeah.
And then, the fact that light speed, it looks like a pretty rainbow when you're a Purgle.
Yeah.
Like the full spectrum is available.
Right, versus just the blue tube that we're used to seeing, and now we're seeing all these kind of flashes of color. I also really just kind of liked, you can kind of see, more of this percolating of how Ahsoka has been changed by her lesson from Anakin, right? As she's thinking about, I think she says there wasn't enough time to prepare Sabine to make the choices that she's going to have to make. And
Hu Yang, which for being a robot, has the very empathetic and insightful nugget of wisdom to give Ahsoka, which is that actually maybe for her it was the only choice.
Yeah.
You may see other choices. You may have had other choices because you are a different being.
Yeah.
But for Sabine, there was only one choice.
Yeah.
And for somebody who's been kind of crusty and hard on Sabine the whole time, like I thought that was a really poignant choice.
And I love that he said to Ahsoka, like, oh, I just left my brain. But how he was like, well, maybe you have he's like, do you want me to tell you a story? And she's like, no. And he's like, well, maybe you have a story to tell me. And whereas in the earlier in episode 1 or 2, they're having a conversation. Oh, episode 1, and Ahsoka's like, where'd you go? Like, you need to stay in contact with me. You need to have my back. He's like, I am not a Padawan. So just to have these moments where he's like defining his role and then breaking out of it and kind of, being the favorite droidy uncle that like has the wisdom but isn't going to completely shove it in your face, but just to let you know, like, I could tell you those stories if you need, we can fortify you on this journey for whatever we're about to face.
I want him to be my droid uncle.
So yeah, I thought that was awesome, the travel through.
Yeah. Also, just kind of cool. Like you can just see like the light speed light through the baleen of the whale stuff. Too.
I love that they have baleen.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what are they straining in space? I don't know. It's fine.
The microbial light force beings. I don't
Right.
know.
There you go.
You know?
Draining the force out of the atmosphere.
And then my note to myself was to ask you, Andy, are you so happy that we got Hu Yang doing the wisdom dogma dropping? Like, does that feel fun?
Oh,
I know you were
yeah.
excited about him earlier.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, it is. It's also, I mean, honestly, props to David Tennant. Of course, if you're familiar with him from Doctor Who, of course, or he was also the Purple Man in oh gosh, why am I blanking on that show? The Marvel show from Netflix. Jessica Jones, where he was frightening.
Yeah, he was horrifying.
But this, I mean, you really get a sense of how versatile an actor he is, right?
Yeah, if you haven't seen him in Jessica Jones and you don't have any kind of very sensitive abuse triggers, go find that, because I like that series, like at the time, was a hard watch for me because of things I'd recently been through, and David Tennant did such a good job. He horrified the shit out of me. I was like, oh, that's too close to home. You're too good at that. Oh my god.
All right. Also, he was the voice of Scrooge McDuck in the most recent DuckTales adaptation too.
Oh my gosh, I did not know.
Yep. Yeah, they let him be Scottish for that, which was and Crowley in Good Omens.
Right.
Last but certainly not least, he and Michael Sheen made me cry this season. Oh, he destroyed me. So yeah, David Tennant working.
So also something I just find really interesting is all these little moments. There are a number of really interesting scenes with Shin and Balin.
Yeah.
As you kind of watch their relationship evolve, and you see Balin, as he gets closer to whatever it is he's seeking, and Shin getting more and more kind of bristly, right? Like she once again kind of calls out, like, more witches, really? Like we've, or she seems to also kind of like bristle when she realizes that they're gonna kind of double cross Sabine, for all of her rivalry with her, and she's kind of like, wait, what do you mean we're not keeping her word?
We're not following through, yeah.
Well, and it also felt like she had a little moment when Shin tries to say something like, I'm a Jedi, and he's like, no, I'm raising you to be something more.
Right.
And just her reaction was like, I was almost wondering, like, girl, did you think you're about to be a Jedi? Like, is that, are you your own version of Boken Jedi? Like, are you your own version of In the Wild? Like,
yeah.
Well, that's also just an interesting thing in terms of realizing now how little of this plan she actually knows, which of course, sure, the writers are taking advantage of this so that we can tease out what Balin's motivations are, but for her character arc too, it's like, yeah, she has no idea what she's walking into.
No idea.
And she's starting, you can kind of see, like, she's still very loyal to Balin. He's her master, but like
she's asking questions.
And her faith is getting shaken, right? She's looking around like, everyone wants to leave. Why would we stay if everyone else wants to leave?
The other thing that struck me was that it was a pretty smart, I think, counterpoint. Balin telling her, no, I'm training you to be more than your predecessors, which is pretty much exactly what Ahsoka said about Sabine. I don't want her to be a Jedi. Yeah. I want her to be her own kind of Force user.
Right.
So they are drawing parallels in between, despite the different goals and despite the different methods and moral lines in the sand that the two masters have drawn, that their hope for their apprentices are still not so different.
Well, so this is another interesting thing too, right? Let's talk about like the idea of Boken Jedi, right? Which is of course So this is actually using a Japanese word that refers to basically a wooden training sword, right? In this application, we can presume it's kind of like inferring that it's a false or a fake, or like a cheaper version of a Jedi, right?
Like the community college version versus
Yeah.
the 4-year
Right.
institution, you know.
Jedi from Wish.
Which ultimately applies to Luke. It applies to lots of folks, right? I mean,
it applies to Shin Hati too, right? Or whatever he's training her to be.
yeah. Well, and that's the thing, right? If she's surprised that she is not to be, she shouldn't be referring herself as a Jedi, or what does, or maybe did he tell her that she would learn the Jedi ways? So like, what does he identifying her as, right?
Because doesn't she have a Padawan braid?
She does.
Yeah, she has a Padawan braid.
And they do make that, Hu Yang makes that thing, makes a comment when he analyzes her lightsaber that it is made exactly as I would have specified it, even though
In the temple,
I was not involved, right? It's interesting as she keeps questioning Balin. We get all these nice little snippets of his mindset. Like she asks him, "Do you miss it, the Jedi Order?" And he says, "I miss the idea of it, but not the truth, the weakness. There was no future there." And she asks, "You clearly, and clearly you see one here in this wasteland." And he says, "Oh no!" And and then she calls. That's when she calls out that everyone seems to want to leave. But he's calling. He says something that something's calling to him.
And he says he's looking for the beginning.
Yeah.
Which is, if it's all right if I kind of move on to this thought in those talks that they have, I thought it was interesting that he kind of obliquely tells you exactly what his motivations are. He doesn't just, he's not laying it out detail by detail, like, and this is going to, and this is my breakdown, and like, here you can do the minutes. He doesn't do that, but he does say that the cycle of good and bad and good and bad and, light triumphing, evil triumphing, he's sick of it.
Yeah.
And he wants to stop this endless cycle.
Here, I'll read the quote here. I've got it here. He says, "This is a land of dreams and madness. Children's stories come to life. When I was a bit older than you are now, I watched everything I knew burn. I couldn't make sense of it at the time. As you get older, look at history, you realize it's all inevitable." And he's used that word quite a bit. The fall of the Jedi, the rise of the Empire, it repeats again and again and again. And when she asks, "Then is it our turn now? Won't our alliance with Thrawn finally bring us into power?" And he says, "That power is fleeting. What I seek is the beginning, so I may finally bring the cycle to an end." What do you guys think that means?
It's so many layers to this in my thoughts. My thoughts for like personal, psychological, emotional character development. He says, at the time that I lost everything, I couldn't make sense of it. Honey, you still haven't made sense of it. You're trying to stop time. You're trying to stop change. That's folly. That'll be folly in any universe. There is no stopping of the wheel. If you stop, you are stagnant. If you are stagnant, you are dead. Not even the Bendu is static or stagnant. As the gray center of the Force. Not even the gray center of the Force is static or stagnant, because it shifts depending on where the balance of power currently lies. So what he's looking for is a flawed impossibility. And to me, it's somebody who that's a sign of a character who went through, as he said, his world falling apart, everything he knew destroyed, immense trauma. And now that he has any kind of power in hand and more within his grasp, he is, instead of trying to grow through that trauma, trying to protect the child self in a way that's not necessarily realistic in the slightest, and is probably going to come back to bite him in the ass.
For sure. And I would pick up there and agree to that and say, I also thought it was interesting that we get Shin saying, well, sometimes stories are just stories.
Yeah.
And so hearing this generational and maybe, you know, also that meta on like trauma survival and like what are the things we pass. You know, he's teaching her, you know, and I think back to episode 5, Anakin saying, I am giving you everything that all that my master has ever given me. Like, don't worry, you're gonna get the essence of our lineage. And so it just makes me, yeah, watching Balin watch Morgan Elsbeth and particularly once they arrive to Peridia and just watching his side shade and his eye game is very telling. Like I'm like, oh, you got all like Thrawn wants to leave you, but you're down to leave Thrawn too. Like you have your own plan. You know, I think I had heard once that somebody thinks that Balin and Shin are part of the birth of the Knights of Ren. And so I've been contemplating what that could be and then just also I think I'm just nerding out around. There's something exciting to me about the fantasy and the spiritual questness of a Jedi path. And like, we've only seen a couple of versions of the path in the mainstream movie worlds. And so this just gives us so much more breadth. I haven't read the Thrawn novels. I feel like I'm almost about to go there. Like it's taking me a minute.
10 out of 10 recommend.
Yeah, it's taking me a minute, but definitely I'm an avid Rebels fan, and I've been watching that. I've also started to rewatch. I was in a loop around Clone Wars season 4 and just saw a bunch of things with Ahsoka, and so just witnessing, just thinking again about her flashback in the World Between Worlds, and like really the shift in the Jedi Order from peacekeepers and monks and priests to soldiers and warriors, and what that means for those of like these cycles, if it's a meta cycle of like where we are right now in human history. Like I just watched a documentary on the rise of fascism, and I'm just like, how are we battling? How are we battling all these things, and who are our Jedi, and how are we as humans training each other in our version of the light side, so that it can be passed on, and that these stories can just be stories, but there are also secret ways for us to tell. There are also ways for us to communicate important truths that need to survive.
Right.
No matter who's in power. Like if we can disguise it as a story, if Huyen can give it to us as far, far away. Oh, okay, it's out there. But we can actually learn, you know, he can tell us the story that we need right now because of whatever we're facing, is my like stretch it out and pull it back together piece.
Hey, that's
Isn't
where it gets meta, so you know.
So here's my take on this. And you know, I find it so interesting, his mindset, and yeah, that idea of him just wanting to stop the cycles, right? So I started thinking about, well, again, that we know that they are both named for the Norse mythological giant magical wolves that chase the sun and moon, that if they catch up with the sun and moon and eat them, they bring upon Ragnarok and the end of the universe and the 9 realms, right? And what if it's that he maybe, like, certainly he seems to have lost a bit of faith in humanity, but if it's that he actually, if that lack of faith in humanity extends specifically to those who have power, which includes himself, the Jedi, the Night Sisters, basically all Force users. And what if it's that he wants to actually basically extinguish the Force altogether, right? Like there is some stuff in the lore for what they've referred to as the wellspring of life, which is in theory like the kind of the source point for the midichlorians. And what if it's that his goal is to ultimately basically destroy the midichlorians and cut off the universe from the Force itself, right?
What if since it was a galaxy a long time long ago and far, far away, what if like the humans in that galaxy are our ancestors and all the midichlorians got destroyed and they came here?
Well, see, but that's the thing too, right? I mean, the things that we've learned, right, is that the Force seems linked to the world between worlds, which is linked to hyperspace itself. Like, does that actually limit all of the creatures' ability to travel through hyperspace at all, right, in this galaxy? Let alone it disrupts Force users and therefore, in his mind, removes power so that no one can have conflict over power. Which is such a cool, like, not chaos. I'm not sure what the word I'm looking for, but it's like, right, it's
disruption.
It's a disruption, and it's, to him, it is just.
You can fight over the toy. I'm gonna just take it. No fighting over the toy.
No more fighting over the toy. The toy's gone.
That kind of leads to like what I was gonna add too, was that maybe the stories that he heard was the beginnings of the Force, where there was no Sith, there was no Jedi, there was no conflict, and he wants to get back to that time. He wants to somehow get back to that, so that's what he's seeking. But then also, he does say that he's being called by something, right?
Yeah.
So that's another aspect of it. Just seems to me that there's some even greater force that is is calling him, that may or may not be. It may be malevolent or benign,
are you insinuating Abeloth?
Well, again, since I haven't read or I haven't caught up to all this stuff, that was one of the questions I had to you guys, because I have seen that online. I have seen people saying it could be Abeloth. So I was like, what if that is the case? Who is that, and what would that be if that was the case?
So just to catch everyone up, if you have not heard of this concept, so in the deep lore, there is the concept of a being called Abeloth. The Abeloth was, I believe, a servant of the Mortis gods, who over time gained more and more power, and basically is for the Mortis gods. You have the father who creates balance, the daughter who is the light, the son who is the dark, and then in theory the mother is basically a destroyer type, kind of a Shiva destroyer type icon, who presumably would be like a devourer, kind of like a Galactus, or if you're a Transformers
Medea
person, or a Medea, or a
Decepticon.
No, gosh, why am I blanking on his name? Other eaters of worlds. I can't.
My brain just went to Skyrim.
But Galactus is a good, right? It's basically a consumer, right? And a consumer of worlds or of power, right? So that is an interesting idea of what if Abeloth is basically trapped on this planet. That also kind of explains why Thrawn and the Night Sisters are like, hey, so can we leave? Anytime now, let's get out of here. I'm sure if they do bring in Abeloth, I'll enjoy it. I mean, like, I'll appreciate the way Filoni chooses to do it. Yeah.
But I have like mixed feelings about Abeloth in and of itself as a character,
as an icon, right?
It's got some weird Christian undertones to it, man. I don't know.
I mean, but we've got a lot of interesting Christian undertones, right?
She the destroyer. How did she gain her dark side powers? Oh, she bathed in the pool of knowledge, and the female thing gets power. Now she's evil and a destroyer. So that's got some weird Garden of Eden undertones to it for me that I'm not sure how to feel about. But it's Star Wars. We're all about archetypes. So if that is what you choose to go with, I'd love to see how they do it. We can't wait to see character design if that is the case, especially.
I mean, it would be interesting though, in terms of also, because they already have these three poles of the sun, a male figure, is the dark, the daughter, a female, a feminine, is the light, and then you have the father, which is balance, and then a female figure for the mother being chaos, right? So it's like, so I mean, yeah, I mean, I think there's potential there for just, again,
exactly, if they bring in the father or Bendu or anything like that.
There's also like people like talking about maybe they're some kind of a force dragon or other force monster.
Oh yeah.
Please give me a force dragon.
Do we want a force dragon?
You know, but the
I do. Always yes to dragons.
I mean, you know, the other thing that I did think about too, right, is that maybe he, you know, like if this is the scenario, you know, presumably Ahsoka and or the team stop him, but if there is like a central source, a wellspring of force,
for sure,
that's possibly a way for Sabine to increase her connection to the force and see Sabine use the force. Another kind of interesting thing is if he succeeds on even a little bit, then maybe that's how the force goes to sleep so that it can awaken in episode 7.
Well, and you know, if we're talking about Ahsoka needs 4 seasons before we get to a movie, so how are we gonna have a supervillain for 4 seasons if we only have 2 episodes left, so part of and this is kind of the bridge to me for the Night Sisters, Night Mothers, and the Thrawn arrival, and like, are these night troopers? I think these night troopers are zombies because of the way that Thrawn says, so that you can help me again. And just how
that's right.
And they're
wrapped, and then, you know, like the Roman death mask for Enoch. Like, there's all these indicators to me that they are right. So just to button, I think, like, I don't think if it's Abeloth, I don't think we're gonna really see it. I think that was the season 2 plan. I think it's opening up this whole world of like, what are we doing? What is the battle here? And is Thrawn gonna be able to go back to Prime Galaxy or whatever we're calling OG Galaxy? Like, is he gonna be able to escape by the end of this season? You know, and then, you know, the last thing is like, connecting that Abeloth storyline is like, Ahsoka is the embodiment of the sister, right? The sister in the Clone Wars, the sister dies and her energy is her last act is to give her life force to Ahsoka. So she's got Morai, the owl, flying around in World Between Worlds. So Ahsoka's already poised to battle in that Mortis God battle.
And maybe give like in Avatar with Yue, give the energy back to the moon.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that was right out of Filoni's wheelhouse, because he was part of that. He was part of the writing team during
that's why I brought that up. I was like, we could be seeing another Yue giving her energy back to the moon. Especially now that Ahsoka's gone all white.
And can I say, as a connect, I don't think Thrawn's gonna mess with her as much, because she got her journey to figure out how to face this fear she has, or these feelings she has about Anakin. So part of me is like, I want to see Ahsoka show up full throttle, ready to go, assuming that her Purgle does not get killed with discrimination, or I forget what he says at the end. But
that's the closest I've ever heard. Like, it's one of the few times that Thrawn shows any hint of like a personal emotion, because he's usually so detached that he'd make any Jedi or Sith.
I mean, the man's been through a lot, right? I mean, he's like, man, exile for 10 years. Like, he's usually so high and tight, and like, but he's got like, you can see he's got little stitches to try and keep. He's only got one piece of clothes that he's had for like the last 10 years. So.
And they talked about, Lars Mikkelsen talked about he wasn't going to try to show up all chiseled as Thrawn. He was going to show up like, not dad bod Thrawn, but like
he's got a
Survivor Thrawn. For sure. Yeah. Can we talk about can we talk about Night Sisters? First of all, I'm so excited. Sorry.
Before we get to that, one thing is, though, I want there to be a big space battle, because they kind of have a Chekhov's Starfleet with the 3 3 Alliance ships that are on the other side, at Cetos. So like they're sitting there with Hera still, right? And Hera's gonna be facing demotion. I mean, if the Chimera just shows up and they're like, "Okay, Hera, you're reinstated. Fuck, get in the ship."
Please come back, please. We were
Please,
just
please.
kidding.
For sure. Joke along.
And then really one more thing. Just want to talk about that in terms of the Chimera itself. It has the big mural on the underside of it that's like supposed to strike terror, but then also it's got all these chunks that are continuing, like the gold gilded, like what is it? Kintsugi, yeah.
Kintsugi.
The kintsugi thing that we're also seeing in all of the night troopers too, right? Where there's chunks of gold that make
Holding
up
their
like
pieces together.
holding the pieces together, which is like also kind of cool because now that the Chimera, we've always known that his ship is called the Chimera, but it is now literally a patchwork of different things held together. So okay, sorry, I just wanted to mention that.
No, I like that. I like that. I was it was something I like mentally noted and forgot to write down, so I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
You were saying about the night sisters or night
So
mothers.
just to appreciate the night mothers, to appreciate how quick Morgan Elsbeth was like, "Hey, we're here. There's a signal. Let's get in the ship. Come on, let's go." Like just the complete trust, the complete knowing. As soon as I get to this, it's like getting dropped off at the airport. Like I know as soon as I arrive, I have family there waiting for me. And I know like those 3 actors who played the 3 night mothers, but I had a super like just visceral reaction to hearing Claudia Black, who was in Farscape and lots of other properties. She was the central mother, and then the woman to her left, I forget, she played the Borg Queen in one of the Star Trek things.
Oh no way.
Yeah. So it was just so I just
lineup is badass.
And like the other auntie who I don't know, like every time she spoke, she's one who's like, "It smells like Jedi." Like it was just appreciating these 3 kind of stand-ins for like the Greek, what are they called?
Oh yeah,
like the fates. And just I mean, I continue to love Ahsoka because it gives us more women characters to see the complexity of womanness and its nuances, and to see the circles. Like there's just so many pieces that I felt like gave us so much. And then to see Morgan Elsbeth, the last thing I would say is like to see Morgan Elsbeth be like, "My long distance boo is finally showing up." Like my long distance love, I'm gonna see you, baby. Like just how
well do you know Diana, by the way? Have you interacted with her much?
I think I've met her like once or twice. I produced a Bruce Lee birthday event in LA, and I feel like I got to meet her like super soft core. That sounds bad. Like in a low grade way. But most of my thing is just like, I'm just such a fan, and like watching her and Rosario Dawson battle in The Mandalorian was like one of my favorite. Like I want to see them fight again.
Yeah, I mean, well, they've been teasing that too. That they've been teasing that they spend a lot of time shooting and rehearsing their rematch. So that's definitely coming. I also mentioned, and this one's for you, Rodney. So you know who the actor is who's playing Enoch is, right?
He's that guy.
He's Amos.
He's that guy.
He's Amos from The Expanse.
I remember looking. I vaguely remember that he was in it. But then we hadn't seen him yet, and I was like, "Wait a minute!" So I looked him up, and I'm like, "Oh, he's Thrawn's right-hand man." But I didn't expect him to be that like imposing. I thought he was going to be like another Imperial officer in a uniform, with a gray suit and the hat, right? But no, like he looks.
And he's got a stance, right?
Like, he stands
even when you see him from behind, like he's flexing or something.
Yes. And then just like so then of course like you think about the name, like what that entails, the biblical name.
Right. The kind of what it's a reference to the Old Testament, right?
Yes,
Wasn't he like
a betray? He betrays.
He's like the leader of the archangels or something like.
He was one of the patriarchs before the flood.
Yeah, and it was interesting too because I was reading about that, and they were saying that he has a podcast with Ty Frank, And they were saying they paused that because he was filming this. So he's gonna be in it quite a bit, and he's gonna play. I mean, it looks like he's gonna play a huge pivotal role, right?
Yeah.
So then it leads to the, like we were saying, like, is he alive or is he a zombie? Like, is that something? And then I was watching Star Wars Explained a little bit today because he did have a video specifically addressing if these are zombies. And he was even saying the Inquisitor had that green smoke when he got killed.
Yeah.
Right.
And apparently you guys know this, in Clone Wars and Rebels, whenever the reanimated bodies that were reanimated by the sisters would be killed, they also emitted like a green smoke. So this is like all signs kind of point to at least most of them being zombies. So, but like with Enoch, I think hopefully
Well, and so that's the other thing too, right? Is that isn't Enoch also supposed to be, he walks with God, but he had not died, so that he was still a mortal who made it to heaven, but was still walking with God. So yeah, so maybe he's like the one human among leading a bunch of zombies or something, right? I mean,
yeah. So I'm really excited about that. You know that, Andy, like how big of an Expanse fan I am, and yeah, just him as an actor. But like I for one, yeah. So speaking of that, what do you guys think they did for Thrawn? I mean, obviously, so it doesn't point to that he reanimated them, like, or are there other things that he did for them?
I mean, it is interesting to see a big Star Destroyer and only see troopers, right? We see no Greys at all, which, like, maybe are they upstairs or are they all dead, right? I mean,
yeah, my vote is that because at the very end of Rebels, when their ship gets wrapped up by the Purgle, they break through all the windows in the command center, right? And so it is that question of how did people survive? The way the shots looked, and just the more I think about it, even just the undertone of the whole troops being like Thrawn, Thrawn, Thrawn. I was like, yeah. It's not even like they love their masks. It's like it's part of their, spiritual programming.
Yeah,
exactly.
Do you know what else it reminded? It really made me think of like, it's kind of like it makes Thrawn into kind of a Kurtz figure.
Yeah, I was just
if you think of like the heart. The Heart of Darkness or
Heart of Darkness, yeah.
Yeah, I was literally just about to say that to you, Andy. I remember first seeing it, and that was the vibe I was getting, especially when they started chanting his name, and just the way they were patchwork, like the way they were all individual. They all had different markings. They all had different additions to the Stormtrooper armor. It reminded me so much of like Apocalypse Now, the very first scene when they get to that part of the jungle, where it's just like all these just crazy figures and stuff.
And there's no similarity other than auditory, except when they were yelling Thrawn, 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 I kept thinking of Grond, the battering ram from Lord of the Rings.
Oh.
I mean, there also a Lord of the Rings thing. That tower looked like Minas Tirith.
Yeah, it looks like Minas Tirith. Yeah,
it totally looked like Minas Tirith, right? So
the reverse cowboy on Minas Tirith. Okay, so for sure, can I say, and connecting to Enoch and all that, what I did appreciate, and I want to bridge into a little bit as we kind of get near the end, like just to talk a little bit about Sabine and the Noti, and then getting us to Ezra, like when Enoch says to her, "Die well."
Yeah.
He hands her the weapons. He says, here's the thing, here's the food. Just the way he said "die well," I was like, oh, that's totally what happened over here. Like that's this whole crew of people, right? So I also feel like I enjoyed seeing Peridia. I enjoyed seeing this world. The bandits, like I said, gave me Tusken Raider vibes.
Also, their costumes kind of reminded me of what are they called? The guards from the guards that Ray and
Kylo had their double fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, the red stormtrooper guard.
The red guards or something like that. Guards. Can I say I had a moment watching Sabine argue with the Howler animal where she's like, "You abandoned me." I was like, "Oh, she's finally able to say it to somebody. She couldn't say it to Ahsoka. She couldn't say it.
Couldn't say it
She's
to
not gonna
Ahsoka.
say it to Ezra,
That's
right?"
a good point.
Yeah.
I was like, "Girl, get it out before you get there. Just let it
Yeah.
go. Like you've been carrying it, right? There's all
Yeah.
this stuff, like all this loaded down stuff." So,
That's good.
And
I
she said it to the one character whose feelings weren't going to get hurt. Who was
For
like,
sure.
"I'm sorry. I'm going to come with you anyway."
For sure. I'm gonna show you I can be, you know, and so
because the Howler is a good boy.
oh,
Very
for
good
real.
boy.
For real. Except for that very first experience of being shot at and like leaving.
Yeah,
But
somebody
yeah.
said to me, I'm running too, you know, like I don't blame him at first.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm gonna have to, just a heads up, I'm gonna have to take off in a minute here, you guys, because I've got a 5 a.m. wake up tomorrow and I'm an hour ahead of you all. So but yeah, just doing a quick time check. You guys are more than welcome to continue if you want. And guess just if you guys are okay with me giving a quick thought on no, actually I already did. In the synopsis of the thing, like I already gave my thought on Ezra, so I was just see.
Well, throw it out again.
Well, I mean, the character design, I thought, you know, was like, as much as people are making Space Moses jokes, which one of my other favorites that I saw was American Space Jesus, and they had Obi-Wan, and then they said like historically accurate Space Jesus.
Right. I also really got to hand it to the actor, because he's really captured kind of the spirit of this animated character. Like, I love the little bit where he's like, "Yeah, well, it worked, didn't it? It did, didn't it?"
Yeah, it did work. I mean, he must have really done his homework. His cadence of speech was so good. He managed to, as like you said, really nail the essence of the character without going, "I'm going to act like an animated character that is 10 years younger than I'm supposed to be now." I think he did a really great job of translating it to a slightly older, wiser, and I love that, unlike a lot of the other characters we've seen so far who've been through a lot, not jaded.
That's true.
Not jaded, which I think is, I mean, I know we'll get to see more of that. There's no way that Filoni's going to leave that unexamined. What with the way that Sabine and Ahsoka, several of the other characters, have had their kind of cynicism be part of the character arc. And in Rebels, you see a lot of cynical, discouraged Ezra. And he's past that now. And so it'll be really interesting to see that dynamic at play, and hopefully what's kept him I don't want to say optimistic, but what's kept him what's prevented him from becoming jaded.
What's prevented him from becoming crabby?
All right. That was great. And I, you know what, on that one, I'm gonna head out.
I drive them all away.
I love it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lexi.
Thank you guys both. Appreciate it, and see you again. And just your discussion.
Indeed.
For sure. Hi. I think the only other thing I wanted to jump in on was just appreciating how in that like just a couple things about the Ezra Sabine reunion of like the first shot of Ezra, like legit, like thinking like, oh, she's having a moment, like he's 9 years older. He was a boy when she knew him. He's a man now. So who is that, right? And checking, it almost felt like they were checking their connection again. Like, I don't want to just run up to you because maybe we're not like that anymore, right?
Yeah, I know there have been some people like that felt so understated. I'm like, that feels right, right? Because she's still questioning herself and her decision to do this, and I mean, it does kind of make the chemistry a little bit more tangible. Like, you know, I want to run up and hug him, but I can't. You know, I can't show that. Maybe, or can I? I don't know.
For sure. And that connected to like just his costuming. I feel like knowing that one of the original, we know Kurosawa films are part of the original milieu of what inspired Lucas, but also that, keep hearing like, oh, the Arthurian, like the King Arthur Knights. And I've noticed in this series, I see the knight references in a new way, and seeing Anakin not in animation but in live action in his Clone Wars costume armor.
And even Balin and Shin with their,
sure. Oh my gosh,
definitely like armor pauldron,
sure. And Ezra's got chainmail on underneath his. I'm like, okay, little connection to Grogu, like just these little hints of like. So just really appreciating, and then like literally like we're getting Boken Jedi, like, so we're hearing all these references that are both, Japanese or English or Christian, like we're hearing all these pieces. And I found Ezra on Peridia so satisfying, because as soon as I saw it, I was like, wow, it's like a trailer park. Like, look, they all got antennas, and like it seems like a mobile place for this nomadic community to live. And so it just, I feel like, what is the wisdom? Has Ezra come to a place of acceptance that he may have never been found again?
Yeah.
And so he had to, like, you have to at some level accept that you're not going to go back to your former life ever.
So the other thing I really wonder is, obviously he's been on the planet for some time. Well, for 10 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we know we haven't been told the story of Peridia yet, but we know that Peridia has huge foundational significance to the mythology of everything that we've seen, right? Whether this is the home of the wellspring or the home of the Dathomiri. We see the ruins, we see the big statues that look like the Van Gogh Starry Night screaming, or even maybe like other Night Sister statues. You can see like there's hieroglyphics on bits of runes and rocks,
and the Purgle
so it's like, what? And of course right? The Purgle will go here to die, right? So it's like, there is so much. You wonder, like, has he been able to tap into any of this, right? I mean, this is one of the things that, if you watched Rebels, that one thing that was such an interesting thing about Ezra Bridger as the Jedi that he became was that he was very intuitive, to the point that his teacher, Kanan Jarrus, so often there were some great interactions where he's like, he's got a gut feeling, I'm going to trust him on this, which is, not something we saw in a lot of other Jedi Masters throughout all the other storytelling, where he's going to trust my Padawan. He's got an instinct about this, so let's see where the Force takes him. They almost kind of implied that, Ezra might actually be stronger in the Force than Kanan, but Kanan is more trained, right? And that's kind of what drew him to the dark side a few times, right? Because he was intuiting so much.
Right.
So we know that he always has been able to basically talk to any animal or, alien character. But without guidance, presuming that Kanan never showed up in Force Ghost and helped him translate anything, has he discovered any of the remnants or ruins? What force power, what ability, or how connected to this planet is he now? Right? Is he like Indiana Jones' Last Crusade knight?
Yeah, the knight who's waiting for you to come pick the right cup.
The right cup.
Yeah. Well, and that reminds me, like in the intro to the show where they show all the helmets and they're flashing like red, blue. There's an Inquisitor helmet that's getting a blue light that we still don't know who that is.
That's right.
We have the Sabine helmet. Yeah, we have the Sabine helmet at the end of that. And for people who aren't paying attention, it's the part you could skip the intro. It's not that long, but it's such a Easter egg filled thing. Like that's how people started to surmise, oh, Sabine may turn because her helmet is showing red. And so I've just been thinking about, okay, when people thought, oh, Merrick is actually Ezra, I was like, how's Ezra going to fight all these people he knows? There's no way he could be under that helmet and Ahsoka and Sabine not feel him. Yeah. So part of me is just curious, like, yeah, I just think there's so much I'm just curious how much of the intro into this world of Peridia and this galaxy we're gonna get this for the rest of this season. All these battles that we know are coming to a head.
I mean, for that matter, we're on one planet in a whole new galaxy too, right?
Exactly.
I mean, presumably this is what Skeleton Crew would have continued.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Excuse me, continue to explore.
Me and Allison were talking about that a little bit before in the pre-show.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm just loving that there's this whole new universe and new world and new, like the Noni, and just the deep dives into, like, they're really pushing into like the really heavy fantasy elements of Star Wars, right? Just like, I'm just so excited of where this is turned, right? Because it's like, there's just so much, like, everything we talked about Balon, like his quest, literally his quest, right? And then everybody's journey with the Force, with the Purgles, like all these things. So that now there's even speculations where all the Purgles when they get there, they're gonna die. Like all this stuff, like just like all this lore and all these things that are just like these questions and things that they're really setting up is like, I'm so excited about it. It's just like so excited about it.
Well, and of course we know that they have put on the slate a film that they're loosely titling The Dawn of the Jedi, right? So is that in the core worlds, or is that in Peridia, right?
Core worlds. Okay.
Yeah, does Rey go over there and start from there, and maybe that's part of it, right? If that is the world where the beginnings of the Force happen, then it would kind of make sense to start there, right? Start anew, and maybe that also explains, like, well, okay, timeline. I was thinking something else, but yeah, I think they're setting that up. I mean, they're for sure setting that up for the Thrawn movie or the Mandalorian Filoni movie,
for sure.
But yeah, it would make sense that that's where Rey starts off, and that she's starting this academy, but it's like getting back to sort of the roots of the Force. And
she has all the She has all the Jedi text from the tree, right? Like that was part of what happened, right? Is she pulled the library with her onto the ship.
So I gotta say, like, something that I'm feeling in like the back of my head is I'm kind of bracing myself, because there's only 2 episodes left. There's no way they can resolve everything, and
no way.
It's like, what was it that Lexi was saying? Oh, about the Howlers, and like, okay, you're making me like the Howlers, so you're probably gonna kill it. I really wonder if we're in for some other major character death. Right.
Well, I mean, I feel
because I'm just looking at that chessboard, right? We have 3 Republic ships, Hera and Jason, and presumably, somewhere the last Ghost Crew member is in a ship somewhere, right? And they're all on the other side of this path to Peridia. The Chimera's got to make it back into the galaxy, and it will give us the opportunity to see, like, Thrawn be like a crazy strategist and take a broken down podunk, old, beat up Star Destroyer and take out, a couple of those brand new shiny Republic ships, right? Like, that's gotta happen. That just is so Chekhov's gun. And then will that strand, Ahsoka, Huyang, Sabine, and Ezra with Balin and Shin? Will Shin turn on Balin, or will Balin be like playing Magneto to Shin's like that's another thought. I thought it's like, is he maybe like grooming Shin Hati as a sacrifice to whatever his plan is, right? Because why would he keep her in the dark so much that she has no idea what they're going for?
Well, I would just say patriarchy. Like, that's part of it,
Fair enough, yeah.
But I mean, I love these questions, because it is like, what is Filoni gonna open for the rest of us in terms of, because I feel like what we were talking about earlier. Just so exciting to be in a new galaxy.
Yeah.
I think my other awareness is like, I also feel like we're gonna get to a place where Balin opens up, it's like he's gonna open
Yeah.
the Ark of the Covenant and not realize, and his face is gonna melt kind of moment.
Yeah. Totally. Right. Yeah.
He's so excited.
It's got to be not what he expected, and then he's going to be like.
Mhm.
I mean, that's another thought. That I thought it's like part of the other thing is maybe he gets there, it's not what he thought, and he's like, Ahsoka, save my Padawan.
Save my Padawan. Yeah.
And you were right. Train her the right way, or something like that.
Right. And last two thoughts. Maybe he is going to become the embodiment of the sun. If we stay in the Mortis God world, he's the embodiment of the sun. Ahsoka's the embodiment of the daughter. So then who becomes the father? Like all that kind of stuff. So I'm thinking about that.
I mean, we're gonna see Anakin again, right? I mean, do we think we're gonna see Anakin again? I mean, and we know
if
that
not
Anakin,
this season, then for sure next season.
Well, and we know that Anakin was, the father had hoped Anakin would take his place and maintain balance.
Oh, as the son, the son.
I've read that they've already said that he does show up again.
In this season or in the show?
In this season.
Okay, then in one of the two finales.
Yeah.
Okay, my last thought about the Howler is they're not making me love it because they're gonna kill it. They're making me love it because they want me to buy the merch.
That's true. There it is.
My cynical reaction was, you're making me love this thing because now am I gonna want the toy, or am I gonna want because it's a dog and a horse. It's a wolf and a horse. Right?
I mean, I was thinking too, right? I mean, for somewhere there's all these kids with Stormtrooper action figures, or even 501st members who are like, if I go get some red E-tape, and just start wrapping it around myself.
Okay. Next week, I'm going to put red tape on the kitty.
There you go.
For sure. Or put some gold. Like kitty needs gold.
Kitty needs gold. You need to break the mug.
And then reform it
with the
Kitsugi the mug. There you go.
I mean, it's an adaptation. I don't know that I would celebrate. I love it. I'm so excited that we have 2 episodes left, and I just thanks so much for letting me hop on, because I always love when we talk all the things, because
it's been good stuff, right? I mean, and the interesting thing is I don't think Ahsoka's streaming numbers have been as high as Andor, but it's been still pretty strong. I know that episode 5 saw a considerable bump, according to reports. But of course,
and all the all the Thrawn alive. I'm sure all the Thrawnies, or whatever they're called, Thrawn heads. What are they called?
I didn't know there was a Thrawn cult.
I do think there is a Thrawn cult. I have to say, across some of the comparative nerd watching I've done, so many people have been waiting for Thrawn, and I was like, that's not who I wanted.
Lars Mikkelsen is doing a great job with this. Honestly, he's doing so much with stillness, right? Like the moment when Morgan, asks him, you're only going to send 2 garrisons, and he pauses for a moment, and he's got like just the flick of a smile, which he could be it could be that I don't have that many men left, or it could be that you haven't seen these guys go yet, like they're actually undead and indestructible, they'll be fine, this will be right. But it's like there's so much happening in his deliveries and his stillness, right?
And Diana Lito Inosanto as well, like she's working pauses, like she's from the beginning of this season. So I'm super, I mean, maybe he's holding that pause too, like, oh boo, welcome to Peruvian. I'm about to show you.
Yeah,
I want to learn about all your lineage.
I mean, the things that she's she's also stuck with all of these kind of lore dropping, right? In terms of like saying these are the ancestors of my people, or where the Dathomiri come from. Like this is like, we had seen the planet Dathomir. We've seen there was Mother Talzin, which was only one mother. Now we see 3. It's like there's so much incredible like new lore, and you can kind of see her pride, right? Coming out of like Oh, that's true. We never really got to the cargo. Do we want to talk about the cargo real quick?
I think we should wait and see what it is.
Okay.
I feel like we should each give like one more wrapping thought because
how about this? So our wrap up thought is each of us make a guess of what we think those boxes are and what they're significant.
Can my guess be who I think's gonna die?
Okay, yeah, do that.
Okay, you should do the boxes though.
Okay, so so the boxes are clearly coffins, so there's some kind of body.
Yeah, that's my guess.
Maybe they could be like, Night Sisters to resurrect, but I think it would be more interesting if like it's like the Night Troopers' bodies, right? Because we see Merrick when Merrick dies, he just turns into a cloud of dust that spits out, right? So what if like the physical bodies have to be nearby, so that the troopers can still walk around?
That is interesting.
Because like it's empty suits with smoke in it.
Yeah.
Containing them, but their physical bodies still have to be near. So.
Ooh, I like that.
I think it's that the zombies, and then probably some long lost Force artifacts. From they ransacked one of the old temples, and they have some sort of, power in them.
Right.
So,
something for the Night Sisters specifically.
Yeah, or just in general, because it's like clearly important. So it's some sort of weapon,
cool.
or, that enables them to do something, right? So.
Although I will say, I do really like having a Star Wars where there are really good high stakes, but no super weapon.
For sure, for sure.
Yes.
There is no Death Star.
There is no Death Star /
or Stardust,
Starkiller Base or
Starkiller
Stardust or
I was gonna say something funny about all that. Okay, so I think that I would ditto all of that. It does. Oh, I remember what I was gonna say. It does feel like we're getting set up a little bit with like Return of the King and a Lord of the Rings kind of a nod where we get the army of the dead coming off the ships.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about that. My thought on who might die, as we were talking about character and investment, I really hope that Morgan Elsbeth is not the sacrificial lamb of this season.
Sure. Yeah.
I really, really hope it's not. It makes me wonder, because the actor Ray Stevens passed, I'm curious what his arc was. What is Balin's arc?
Yeah.
And would Balin have been the sacrificial? I don't think so. But yeah, so I'm just curious about, once we get to the end of the season, where we are just in the reality of like who that character could be, if that character is still, the recasting and those kinds of questions. So those are my chunky things to think about as we wait for the next episode tomorrow. And the finale for the season next week, like the week after. So
yeah, I don't know if they've revealed how long tomorrow's episode is. I'm very curious, because I do think we're gonna get a multiple endings type of thing, right?
For sure. Oh yeah, they're not just gonna give us one; they're gonna give us multiples. And I was gonna look up. Yeah, Geeta Patel is the director for tomorrow's episode.
Oh, cool.
And then Rick Famuyiwa is gonna direct the finale. So good.
He's their big action director. Like they always do big action pieces with him.
So fun.
All right. Anything else? Last call?
No, so much more to say, but next week is where we can hold it.
Yeah, totally. All right, then I think we're gonna wrap it up there. Of course, join us next week. Next Monday, we'll be talking about tomorrow night's episode, and using all of the rest of the week to analyze and rewatch and go look up our new mythology references and everything, and we'll see what happens. Also, we want to see how Star Wars has inspired you. Do you cosplay? Do you make fan films? Do you build droids, build models, sell stuff on Etsy? Are you going to make an adjustment to your Stormtrooper armor and turn yourself into a Night Trooper? Then send us photos. We want to see how Star Wars has inspired you. We might just feature you on the show. And thank you for joining us here on the Geekish Network. Please follow the Geekish Network on YouTube and Facebook and subscribe to the channel. And thanks for joining us here on Monday nights. Check out the schedules for all the other great shows like Geek Beast, which is not on tonight, but is on other nights. Thanks on the flight tech to Rodney. And of course, we are the Pod Squadron. Please check out all of our content on podsquadron.com. Like and subscribe. Follow us on X, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I can't remember if we're on Threads or not. Are people still doing Threads? I don't know. For podcast subscriptions, you can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast app. I am the Chinese Pirate at ChinesePirate _ on all platforms.
And I'm Pix by Dayla on the Insta.
Check out Feral Geek. That's Lexi's stuff. And then, of course, Hot Nerd Girl Tracy, who's not here with us today. All wings return to base. Course laid in and prepared to make the jump to light speed on my mark or jump in a Purgle. And remember, the truths we cling to depend on our own point of view. Only the Sith deal in absolutes. Good night.